Okay, here we are back for our last tutorial. This one covers compositing. I'm going to briefly explain what I'm doing as I'm going along in the compositing nodes, but most of it you will have to refer to our discussion for. Let's begin. First, I'll start with my screencast keys. Screencast key. There we go. Create a little more space. Okay, this is a really nice way to finish because we have to do a little bit of modeling, a little bit of texturing, and a little bit of compositing. So we'll start out with our modeling. We need to add a cylinder for the blade, which we can rotate on the Y 90 degrees. Drag over to the end, find a suitable width with S, Shift, X. Something like that. We need to ram this in there. Select the face. Probably rotate our camera view, but I want to see a bit more blade in our final render. And we can just drag our blade out. Since we're not looking at the entirety of the blade, we don't need to do any fancy points or anything, and just that'll work. Since my blade is going to be green because I'm doing the more traditional lightsaber, I will just use my on material for the blade. There we go, that's our modeling. For our texturing, first, this we just need to scale up a bit so that it fills the entirety of the viewport, or camera view. And this will be our floor material. What we're going to do with this material is we're going to use a diffuse-ish material with a musgrave texture as a mix factor, and then we're going to add a little bit of glossiness to it. Well, actually a lot of glossiness. This will create a nice little reflection underneath our lightsaber and of our blade. For this, we'll use D3, D3, D3. For this, we will use 9C, 9C, 9C. And for this, we will use 59, 59, 59. Now let's add our musgrave texture. So this is a fairly big texture, so let's just drag these down. A lot of options in it. This is very similar to a noise texture. Only a couple slight differences. Let me just pull it up quickly. Okay, so for our values, we can do 50, tab brings you to a new line, 50, 0.7, 2, 0.5, 0.2, and then 1 is okay. Now you can see we've got nice little speckliness. So we just go into our rendered view quickly. We can see that we've got our lightsaber, our floor, and our blade. Granted, our blade looks pretty bad, and that is the entire point of this tutorial, making our blade go from bad to significantly less bad. This is a little too thick for me. We'll make it thicker with compositing. So why don't we go back into the normal view and just do S, Shift, X to make it a little bit thinner. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we're going to need multiple render layers for this. So what we need to basically do is we need to have the floor, the reflection, because when we go into rendered view, we need to have our reflection. And what we're going to do when we composite is we're going to have the floor with the reflection in this, and we'll make this look like a lightsaber blade. Then we're going to take the blade. We're going to make it look like a lightsaber blade and plop it on top. Then we're going to take the handle, and we'll just plop it on top of everything. We're doing this like that so that we cover up everything. You always want to do the top stuff last. I mean, that's kind of just logic. Okay, so we need to first we need to separate these things. And then we will fool around with render layers. So our handle is going to stay in layer, actually no. Our camera and lamp, we can use M to move around layers, and Shift to select multiple layers. We would need to be in all 3 layers. Our blade is going to be in layer 2. Our floor is going to be in layer 3. Then we can just Shift select down here to show all of them. Okay, our first layer is going to be the handle. Nothing to it, just layer 1. We want our reflections from all the others. Second layer is going to be the blade. This is layer 2, and we'll mask layer 1 because we don't want to see the entire blade. We don't want to see all of that. We want to see just the part that's not shown by the lightsaber. So we'll mask layer 1. We will have reflections, which will be the floor. And we're also going to need, for reflections, a glossy direct and indirect pass. Lastly, but not least, if I can pull it up, dum-dee-dum-dum. Yes. Lastly, we will need a layer for just the blade reflection. And this will be layer 3, but excluding layer 1 because we don't want to see the handle. And probably mask layer 1 too. And for this, we will need a glossy direct pass. Let's come over here and set up some render settings quickly. 50%, 20 samples, set this back down to normal value. 3, a lot of fireflies, need to get rid of them. I mean, the big filter glossy. And we need transparent. Performance, since I'm running this with my laptop, I'm going to set this to 16 by 16 for optimal performance. Let's go. Could have forgotten something, but I don't think so. There should probably be a link in the video right now to skip this section. If you're using a GPU, you'll want to use 256 by 256. You can see we've definitely got a bit of noise in here, but don't worry, that'll be different in our final render. This is just a test render so we can check out our compositing. Always so satisfying to see all your work pulled together. There we go, finally a bit of blade poking through. Yep, not much blade in this shot, but that's okay, we don't need much blade. Okay, so it looks like masking didn't exactly have the intended effect, but it won't matter. There we go, finally seeing some of what we want. Alrighty then. Okay, so let's go to Compositing. We click Use Nodes. We don't need our composite node right now, it'll just get in the way, so we'll delete that. Click Backdrop. We can use Control Shift left click. Bring in a viewer node. And we're going to start today with blade reflections. So our first order of business is to key this out to create a mask. So we're going to use a matte color key and key that color. This value needs to be changed to 1 just to create a more complete mask. We will be using the matte value, so we can also use Control Shift click to toggle between these. Ew. Okay, so first let's try turning this down a bit. Like maybe 0.2. And it's okay that that's weird for now. Yeah, so let's just go over here to blade reflections and undo that mask layer. So that'll just be a little weird, but it will not affect our final product. Oh wait, no, glossy direct. Oh no. 2. Okay, there we go. Took a little refresh or something. Okay, anyway, whatever. Now we can use matte. Okay, good. We still will want to have mask unchecked. But yeah. Let me just make a note of that. Okay, anyway. Continuing with the compositing. Now we've got that, we need to inverse it. We can use a color invert. And the thing is, what we want to do is we want to have this reflection and then the actual blade, and we'll composite both of them to be green and lightsaber at the same time. But we want the reflection to be a little duller because it's a reflection. So what we need to do is we need to subtract a bit of that whiteness. So we're going to use a mix node and set it to subtract. So do color mix, set it to subtract, and currently the FAC is 1. If we set the FAC to 0, it's fine. As we increase this, it will get grayer and grayer. To start out, let's try a value of 0.4. This is the one that I used. I found this to be pretty good. We also want to clamp this, because otherwise we're subtracting from the black as well, which could create values of black that are less than 0, and that creates all sorts of problems. But clamping clamps the values between 0 and 1. So that means that without clamp, this is black, but it may be darker than black to the computer. With clamp, this is black, and it means black to the computer. We definitely want to do that. Now what we need to do is add another render layers node, so we can Shift D duplicate it. This time we want to use blade. Yeah, blade. And we'll use the alpha value from blade because that looks like that. And we can use the subtract. This time we want to change it to add and 1. What this has done is it's taken the white values from here and it's added them to the black. So this creates a nice little mix pass. We're using the alpha because in the alpha channel, everything that registers as something is white, and where there's transparent, it registers as black. So that creates a perfect little pass for us, and we can see that this one's a little brighter because that is ideal. Okay, so now for the heart of our lightsaber compositing. We will split this into green exterior and white interior, and then combine them again at the end. So to do this, we need to start off with a blur node. We'll do the green first. We'll do filter blur. We want to use fast Gaussian just to make our compositing faster, relative, and then 4 and 5. Now I see we have nice little white clouds, but that's not what we want. We want this to be green. We want them to be green. So we can add a converter color ramp, slot it in. Now this isn't doing anything at the moment, but if we change our white value to a green, like 00FF00, makes them green. Now over here, this is black, but we don't want it to be black. We want it to be clear. We can take this alpha value and make it 0. Now we have our floating green clouds, which is perfect. But we want our green to be a little stronger. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this top value and put it down, bring it down to 0.2. That just makes that a heck of a lot brighter and nicer. Okay. Now that is our top. That is our green. So let's just move that up a bit to create some space underneath. Now let's duplicate this color key node for the bottom, because this time we're going to have to manually key out the black. So if we just focus on this, we can set our key color using the eyedropper again to black. And yeah, we need a lot less here. So this can just be 0.1. Perfect. We can duplicate our blur. This time we will use 1.5 on both. This will create slightly blurred edges, which will blend nicely with our green, but not too blurred. Perfect. So now what we need to do is we need to add these, we need to combine these. So we'll actually use our add node again, because white trumps everything else, so we can add the white. We'll want our white on bottom, our green on top, and we do not need to clamp this. There we go, we have some nifty lightsaber blades. I think we will have to change this value later, but to make the white more visible, but for the time being, we will not need to, so that is something that we will come back to if necessary. Alrighty, so our next step is going to be starting to add the reflection at the bottom. So what we need to do, we need to bring in another one of these render layers. So you can take this one and we'll duplicate it up here because we have a couple nodes that we need to add in before we can connect it. I like to keep all my sets of nodes sequential. This is going to be reflections. It looks like we need to move it up a little more. Okay, so let's start out with first things first. So what we're going to need to do is take the glossy direct pass. So glossy direct, if I plug that into the viewer, is our, is it glossy direct? I'm going to have faith. and hope that glossy direct is the right thing. Okay, so glossy direct is anything that emits light being reflected. Glossy indirect, well, everything else, namely the lightsaber handle. So we will take our glossy direct and we'll be performing some operations for this. First and foremost, we need to color key out our black again. So duplicate this, cut out our black. We'll move this down here. We want to cut out a lot less black than that, though. We need to change these values. We need to change them to 0.001, 0.0001, and 0.0001 again. And that cuts out our lightsaber in matte. So once again, we are going to need to invert this to use it as a mask. So let's just grab our invert node and duplicate it. And then we will plug in, and we're going to need to use, so what we have is we have right now the blades. The next step is adding the reflection at the bottom. But we need to cover up part of this, so we can't just use a mix node now. We need to use an alpha over node. We need to force this. The 100%, no mix factor anymore. So our alpha over is going to take this in the top, going to take our glossy indirect reflection in the bottom, and since we know that white chooses this, we're going, and black is everything else, we're going to plug that in. There's our reflection. Bob's your uncle. But it does look like we're still missing those buttons at the bottom. Can I whip up something to get those buttons in there as well? In fact, let me make sure that those buttons are missing in our final render. No, it does not appear that they are, so maybe they come back later. I don't know. Another thing to worry about in a moment. Another thing to worry about later. Okay, anyway, continuing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take, here they come. We're going to take all of this fancy modification and we're going to alpha it over the original image of the reflection. Let's duplicate this alpha over node and put it on the bottom because bottom takes precedence. Here come our buttons coming over the top. Come on, fill in, fill in. Yeah, there we go, nice filled in buttons. And here's another issue with this. This reflection is way, way too prominent for the diffuse factor of this material. So we can cut that down a bit with this FAC. We'll reduce this FAC value to point. Oh, there's an interesting idea. We reduce that to 0.3. That cuts down our lightsaber blade. So that is why you would up this add value to 3, sort of counter that out. That looks okay, but you know, I think we can go a step further. Yeah, let's try something. Let's make this back to 1, And let's put this back at 1. But what we're going to do is we're going to subtract from this. Let's take our subtract node, and we'll move all of this back a bit. You guys just hear my computer? Love the computer. There we go. Now if we plug in our subtract node, perfect. No, that's not perfect. I guess that's why you can't do that. Unfortunately, you can't control Z in the compositor. So let's just, whatever. Let's go back to our slightly less than perfect, but still pretty good setup. At some point, you just gotta call it quits. Nice to try stuff, but, you know, just gave you an explanation why that doesn't work. Hey, you didn't even ask for it. So we can cut that down to 0.3, and we will up this to 3 as a countermeasure. There we go. It's not perfect, but it almost gives our blade sort of a weathered look. I would up this, but it makes the blade too big. That is not really ideal. So we'll just leave it like that. And hey, it still looks really good. So we are definitely getting down to the end. In fact, we only have one last thing to add. And guess what it is? I bet you can. You know, let's just I'm just taking the time to sort of straighten out a couple of these things. Hate not straight nodes. Just make our wires a little easier to see. It's always helpful. Yeah, last thing. Grab our render layers node for the last time. Change reflections to handle. Duplicate the alpha over node. Set the fact back to 1. And alpha our handle over all of it. That is our finished product in low resolution. So we need a composite node that we can render. So output composite, and plug this in there, much the same. And that is what our finished lightsaber will look like. A lot of compositing, but that wasn't awful. Let's finish up our render settings. So we're going to set the 50 to 100. Going to set the sampling from 20 to 2000. And we're going to, yeah, we'll leave the clamping direct at 3, and we'll leave the light paths as they are. But that'll just make it super clear for our final result. And let's save our project. So Command S, and click. And either the thing will disappear, or in my case, I had a black dot up there, but now I don't. Now I just have a red dot. Guess that's it. It's been fun. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've learned something.